Reading to you from Romans chapter 14, verses 1 through 12. You know the reading of God's holy word. As for the man who is weak in faith, welcome him, not for disputes over opinions. One believes he may eat anything, while the weak man eats only vegetables. Let not him who eats despises him who abstains, and let not him who abstains pass judgment on him who eats, for God has welcomed him. Who are you to pass judgment on the servant of another? It is before his own master that he stands or falls, and he will be upheld, for the master is able to make him stand. One man esteems one day as better than another, while another man esteems all days alike. Let everyone be fully convinced in his own mind. He who observes the day observes it in honor of the Lord. He also who eats in honor of the Lord, since he gives thanks to God. While he who abstains in honor of the Lord, and gives thanks to the Lord, gives thanks to God. None of us lives to himself, and none of us dies to himself. If we live to the Lord, and if we die to the Lord. So then, whether we live or whether we die, we are the Lord's. For to this end Christ died and lived again, that he might be Lord both of the dead and of the living. Why do you pass judgment on your brother? Or why do you despise your brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of God. For it is written, As I live, says the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall give praise to God. So each of us shall give account of himself to God. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Please be seated. May God's blessing be upon us. And may God protect us from the enemy that will try to steal this word from us. Amen. So in the church at Rome, there's obviously some disputes about what it means to be a Christian and how it is that we live out our Christian faith. And what's the best way to do that? And what are we to do when people differ in opinions about how to best live out our faith? And Paul talks about those who are weak in the faith and those who are strong in the faith. In chapter 14 says, As for the man who is weak in the faith, welcome him, but not for disputes over opinions. So don't just invite him in to make fun of him. But there is a recognition that there are those who are inferior in some ways, weak, not quite there yet in how they live out their faith. And oftentimes when we look at the world and we look at our own inferiorities, our own places of brokenness in our life, and those places where we tend to fall short, we can see ourselves acting in ways that Paul is describing here. He says, one who believes he may eat anything, while the weak man eats only vegetables, or one who abstains, while someone else says, you can do whatever you want. If you're weak someplace, you tend to make rules beyond the rules that are necessary for everybody else. If let's say, alcohol is your problem, some people can have a drink, and it doesn't affect them in ways that are detrimental to their lives or to society or to their own personality. Now there's others who, even the thought of it starts to mess up the way they're thinking. And so the Bible doesn't tell us not to drink, it tells us not to drink to excess, but there will be people in society who say you can't drink at all, you can't even have alcohol in your house, and you shouldn't even have it around, and nobody should be able to sell it. And usually those are people who would Paul would say, they're kind of maybe weak. But he's not saying that they're weak and that they're broken and they're falling apart. He's saying that we need to be with our brothers and not put a stumbling block in their path. That's really the thing. He's talking about putting a stumbling block in the path. And stumbling block in the path is the definition of sin. The stone that causes you to trip. And there are those of us who are weak in certain areas. It may not be alcohol. For someone like me, it's always been food and sweets. And so in my house, we try not to keep a lot of sweet things in the house. For the most part, if there is something sweet in the house, generally it will be eaten very quickly by me. My children don't get much chance to get to it. So we have rules that are in my house because I'm weak when it comes to those kinds of things, and I will turn around and I will binge eat. That doesn't mean that everybody should not eat sweets. And that doesn't mean that because I say that sweets are bad and we shouldn't have them at church and we should. No, but we should recognize that there are people who are weak in certain places, and that we all have our weaknesses. And when we have our weaknesses, we build a bigger fence around ourselves. And so Paul is saying there are those who say they only eat vegetables. You can't just get mad at them and say, well, the law doesn't say you have to only eat vegetables. You can eat anything else. You can eat everything else if you want to. No, don't dispute over that. Because people are trying to walk their path of faith the best they can. They're doing it the best they can. And find ways to uphold them and to clear the path for them. And don't put a stumbling block in their way. Don't put a stumbling block in their way. So there is a recognition that each of us has that thing that holds us back. That the block in the middle of our path. Paul is recognizing that individuals and groups of people have different struggles than everybody else. And that we have to be careful about it. And Paul is speaking from a position where it seems that he has overcome most of his struggles. He does talk about his own struggles, but he doesn't really clarify what they are. But he has moved to the point where those struggles are not in his way because he has decided to live a spirit-filled and a spirit-led life. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have temptations. Doesn't mean that there aren't stumbling blocks there. But even he recognizes that he can't lord that over others when they seem to be falling short of what he is doing. And maybe what some people in the church are doing. And that's really the more interesting part of this passage of Scripture for me this morning, is that he says, as for the man who is weak, welcome him. He's really talking about those who claim to be stronger in the faith. Maybe you have come to a place in your faith walk where you have it all figured out. Maybe the temptations that come before you don't succumb to them so easily. Maybe the lusting of the heart, the lusting of the stomach, the lusting of the appetites of the flesh are not so strong in your life anymore. And good for you. And that's an exciting place to be. But don't allow yourself to fall into the temptation of being what I call the smartest man in the room. There's always a smartest man in the room or a smartest person in the room. And generally that smartest man or smartest person in the room, everybody else kind of looks at it like, why do they think they're so smart? And if you aren't sure what I'm talking about, maybe you are that smartest person in the room and you need to watch out for this. It doesn't mean you're not smart, but the smartest person in the room does a couple of things to the dynamic of a group. And one of the things that happens is because one person is so smart, it doesn't allow the group to have the chance to figure out for themselves what really needs to happen. If someone's just telling you what you have to do, you don't have a chance to live through it and become what they become. It'd be easy for Paul in Romans to say, look, here's how it is. I was once bad and now I'm good. And I was once doing bad things and now I'm doing only good things. So just do the good things. But Paul had to go through his whole life of change and transformation. And for us just to say we have to be at one place, we don't have that opportunity for change and transformation. So those who claim to be the smartest man in the room or the smartest person in the room can really slow down the whole group, the whole church from growing, from becoming who God is calling us to be. And at the same time, while not giving us a chance to grow through this ourselves, it just makes our own inferiority seem even more And so instead of the smart person telling me what I need to do, I feel more inferior, so I don't really want to be around it. So I feel like I don't belong here anymore because, wow, that person's so smart and I'm so really kind of stupid or ignorant of this. Maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I need to be someplace else. And Paul is saying, no, don't let that happen. Don't let that happen. Welcome those who are weak. Welcome those who do think differently than you, even about the things you think are most important in the church. Don't cast them off because they are struggling and they do need for you to be with them. We often think about it in terms of, in today's society, those who are on the left and those who are on the right. Those who are maybe liberal or conservative. And there's enough on either side of that thinks the other side is completely wrong. There's enough conservatives that think that liberals are all ignorant. There's enough liberals that think all conservatives are ignorant. And Paul is telling us to be careful about that kind of thing. Because if you're in the vineyard, you're working, you're trying to follow Jesus, and you're trying to claim a life of faith, you may be weak, but you're still trying to follow. And we can't allow ourselves, because we're so much more right or righteous, to let the person falter and fall because of that. And Paul is really calling us all out on this. And I was thinking about this week. The times in my relationships, really across the board, relationships with friends, relationships with churches, one of the most important relationships in my life, perhaps the most important relationship, my relationship with my own wife, in a married covenantal relationship. Those times when I have lost the most in a dispute or argument, the times that I've lost the most of a relationship, that have broken the relationship the most, were not those times when I was wrong. Were not those times when I didn't have all my facts together. Were not those times when I was ignorant of the situation. Almost every time that I've lost the most in a relationship is when I've been the rightest, the most correct, had all my facts, had everything together, and insisted that my rightness was more important than the relationship. And insisting that my rightness is more important than a relationship, I find a brokenness in that. Because I don't allow the other person, I don't allow perhaps the church that I have served, perhaps the relationships that I've built with friends and neighbors, or even in my own married life, where it's cost me the most, it cost me the most anxiety and brokenness in a relationship, is when I've allowed my rightness to be more important than the relationship. Again, had all the facts, had all the numbers, had everything right, but in my rightness, I was able to make the other people, the other person, the other part of this relationship feel inferior, put them down, make them feel less than whole, not allow them to grow and to try to come to an understanding on their own by lording over them and saying that you just don't understand because maybe you're ignorant, maybe you're not smart enough, maybe you aren't trying hard enough. We use words, we use phrases, and we use actions that allow that other person to feel less than they are because we have it already all figured out. And Paul is concerned for a church that thinks it has it all figured out. That they think they have all the answers, all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and that they've allowed their righteousness to become a rightness. And in their rightness, everybody else must be wrong. And in their wrongness, they can never catch up or keep up. And Paul says when we do that, we have put a stumbling block in their path. We have blocked their path to coming to a full and complete relationship with Jesus Christ. And we have to be careful. We have to be on guard about that. Because just because people are doing things out there we don't understand in the faith, doesn't mean we can beat them up for it. All we can do is keep doing what we know is right and not allow ourselves to put them down. We have to welcome them, Paul says, in hospitality. Not so we can dispute over opinions. but that we can grow in the faith together. That we can grow in the faith together. And it's a hard thing to do when you look at the world and you see some things that you know are wrong. And you don't make sense. And you know don't quite add up. And it's a hard thing to do when you can look at the church and you see things that just don't quite make sense and don't add up. And you know in your heart of hearts that they're wrong. It's a hard thing to do. And Paul recognizes the hardness of that. But he calls us in love and charity to do just that. To not put other people down. To not judge them. But to continue to live our faith in such a way that we're clearing a path and not blocking a path. It's a struggle that we have. But it's not a new struggle. It's not a 21st century struggle. It's not a struggle just for today. It's a struggle that happened from the very beginning with the church. What was the right way to worship? What's the right way to love Jesus? What's the right way to be a follower of Jesus? How can we do all of this? There was debates then and there's debates now. And Paul wants us to know that the right way is to do it together. To look for ways to be in love and charity together. Even when we have disputes, even when we don't agree with each other. And to not allow our rightness to break down our relationship. To remember that the only relationship that the only rightness that matters is God's righteousness. And that's the only relationship that will carry us into the future. To God's future, to eternity. I pray, Lord, that we will find a way to clear the path for ourselves and for others, so that we can walk together this journey that Paul called the early church to